This is Curell Case Files, where the line between legend and truth disappears into the shadows. Some stories are born in whispers, others are carved into the walls of history, and a few are mailed directly to your doorstep. This story begins in Westfield, New Jersey, an old money town of quiet streets and pristine homes, nestled in the kind of suburban stillness that lulls you into forgetting the world beyond. It's the kind of place where nothing bad ever happens, until it does. 657 Boulevard was built in 1905, a grand colonial home with towering pillars, a wraparound porch, and the timeless charm of an American dream. For more than a century, families came and went, children grew up, couples grew old. But in June of 2014, the house received new owners. And shortly after they closed on the house, but before they had moved in, 657 Boulevard woke up, and someone or something was watching. Derek and Maria Broaddus had just put down over $1 million to buy their dream home for themselves and their 3 young children. They were painting walls, updating fixtures, preparing to move in. Then one evening, Derek checked the mailbox. Inside, among bills and junk mail, was a white envelope. No return address, just a typed letter. The letter began cordially. "Dearest new neighbor at 657 Boulevard, allow me to welcome you to the neighborhood." But with every paragraph, the tone unraveled into something darker, far darker. The writer claimed the house had been the obsession of their family for generations, that they had been put in charge of watching and waiting for its second coming. They wrote, 657 Boulevard has been the subject of my family for decades now, and as it approaches its 110th birthday, I have been put in charge of watching and waiting for its return. My grandfather watched the house in the 1920s, and my father watched in the 1960s. It is now my time. They knew the names of Derek and Maria's children, their ages, even the nicknames they called them when no one else was around. They referenced the rooms they had started renovating and asked, "Have you found what's in the walls yet? In time, they will." Derek was chilled. He called the police. They opened a case. An investigation began, but the watcher was just getting started. Over the next weeks, more letters arrived, each one typed, always anonymous, always deeply unsettling. The second letter was even more disturbing. "It has been years and years since the young blood ruled the hallways of the house. Have you found all of the secrets it holds yet? Will the young blood play in the basement? Or are they too afraid to go down there alone?" The letters became more aggressive, more intimate. The watcher described watching them from a distance, from the windows, even from inside the house. The family stopped sleeping. Maria no longer brought the kids to the property. Derek installed security cameras, hired private investigators, even consulted former FBI agents. None of it worked. The watcher continued to write, "I am in charge of 657 Boulevard. It is not time for them to move in. I will let them know when it is." The letters referenced neighbors, some by name, others vaguely. Suspicion turned inward. Could it be the family next door? The elderly recluse across the street? The couple who had lost a bidding war on the house? The Broadduses became prisoners of their own paranoia. They never moved into the house. They paid the mortgage, paid taxes, paid for security, but lived elsewhere, fearing what might be watching them, waiting. The neighborhood turned cold. Whispers spread. Some accused the Broadduses of writing the letters themselves, staging a hoax to get out of a financial mistake. But law enforcement found no evidence. The letters were real. The fear was real. And the watcher was never caught. In 2015, they tried to sell the house. No one would buy it. Even after lowering the price, buyers pulled out when they learned about the letters. The Broadduses filed a lawsuit against the previous owners for not disclosing the watcher's presence. That lawsuit was dismissed. No help came. At one point, they proposed demolishing the house and splitting the lot into 2. The town rejected it. The house stood, unchanged, and it kept watching. Eventually, the Broadduses rented out the property, but even the new tenants received a letter. This time it read, "To the vile and spiteful Derek and his wench of a wife Maria, you wonder who the watcher is? Turn around, idiots. Maybe you even spoke to me, one of the so-called neighbors who has no idea who the watcher could be. Or maybe you do know and are too scared to tell anyone. Good move. I walked by the news trucks when they took over my neighborhood and mocked me. I watched as you watched from the dark house in an attempt to find me. Telescopes and binoculars are wonderful inventions, and I watched as you failed. The house was finally sold in 2019 at a loss. The new owners reportedly never received any letters. But that doesn't mean the watcher is gone. Perhaps he's waiting. Perhaps the house has chosen someone new to fixate on. Or perhaps, as the watcher once wrote, 657 Boulevard is turning on me. It is coming after me. I don't understand why. To this day, the case remains unsolved. No fingerprints, no camera footage, no leads. Just typed letters, empty streets, and the feeling that someone, somewhere, is always watching. Some believe the watcher was a disturbed neighbor. Others think it was a calculated psychological attack by someone who lost the bidding war. Some go further, suggesting the house itself is possessed by a presence that speaks through others, using human hands to write its warnings. But maybe the most terrifying theory is that the watcher wasn't someone watching the house from the outside, but rather from within. This is Curell Case Files. We don't invent the darkness. We just read what's already been written. And this time, the watcher wrote it for us all.